Dr. Beck, you've been incredibly vocal about the flaws in some of modern medicine here today. What, if any, would you say is the biggest lie out there that the average man is still believing about his health?
Oh man, that the fix is in the pills, potions, and powders, the gadgets, the gizmos, the biohacks, and all that stuff that has absolutely zero context of the biochemical individuality of you. That's the biggest myth.
So, looking for a fix all solution to a specific N of one problem.
Absolutely. I think the big thing is everybody will suffer from various complaints and symptoms and things that have been bugging them for a while, or they want to increase performance and become superhuman or the ultimate, human being and have all that great biology. And unfortunately, we live in a marketing based, I'm an unapologetic Christian, constitutionalist, contrarian, and capitalist. So at the end of the day, I believe in business and things of that nature, but integrity is really important. But what happens is in the market, everybody is selling a product, a solution, a pill for every ill, if you will, which is kind of, what conventional allopathic medicine is these days, right? You go in, you have a complaint. Hey, doc, what can you give me for this? And they go, okay, well, in 7.6 minutes, here's what your things are. Here's a little slip of paper. Go trade that in for a little orange bottle with a white cap at the pharmacy. And then I'll see you back in 6 months. Well, out there in the performance in the biohacking world and longevity space and health and wellness and stuff, you have plenty of people which will actually provide you that exact same engagement. Watch a piece of content. Hey, if you want this, well, I've got this solution in this bottle for you. And that's where people start spinning their wheels. They're not doing anything with their own personal data. They don't have any way to really know if this works for them or not. And if it does, to quantify it, right? So knowing where you're at before you begin and you start applying these strategies, right? And we apply that in business. We take a look at, balance sheets and EBITDA and all kinds of things that in that nature. And so it's in business. We do it in law when you're taking a look at your pleadings and stuff. And then you take a look at it in performance stuff. You're taking a look at what your PRs are and you're measuring stuff and you're tracking, your dietary stuff and intake. But people don't do that for their physiology. They're just adding pills and they don't know what systems that they're moving. That's my passion lies, is helping people learn how they can actually implement that.
Yeah. And then they're adding one Band-Aid solution on top of another Band-Aid solution on top of another one. And then before you know it, they're on a, cycle of 13 14 different medicines because this one produced this one and it produced this one. It's interesting, you talked about business and kind of some of the variables. It's like, yeah, you need to drive marketing, sales, revenue, which also need balance sheets and EBITDA, tax optimization, customer service, delivery, all of these things. I competed for about a decade in bodybuilding, and like a lot of people think bodybuilding is just about the lifting of the weights. It's like, no, that's actually like 20% of it. It's like your sleep, your recovery, your stress management plays a huge factor in dialing in an optimal physique. So everybody's looking for that.
Absolutely fundamental things we build from. You're not going to get performance in a pill, but it is definitely, there's a lot of different therapeutic molecules that we use to do that.
Yeah. And I think for me, this is obviously not my professional career field, but I think sometimes when you go to see a physician, a doctor that is trained in a specific area, they're looking through your diagnosis through a single lens, like the books they read, the things that they trained on, and the solution that they understand. And maybe what you're struggling with is sitting outside of that specific lens. So can you talk about maybe why a more functional, holistic approach to discovering the root cause? Because I think that's essentially what you're speaking to, is like, we got to get to the root, but why do we need to look at it outside of kind of this traditional one isolated lens, one box? Like, why do we need more of this holistic look at things?
Well, I actually pick on that word holistic. So you have a whole list of supplements, and that's kind of my ick, right? So I don't do holistic. So I'm a 30-year integrative and functional medicine physician, right? So I've worked in over 100,000 cases from all demographics all around the world. I principally train other clinicians and in this field now to kind of step out of that medical model. So I don't deal in diagnosis, right? I don't treat symptoms. We support systems. And so what exists out there is this mentality. I've even given a name. I call it the name it, blame it, claim it, tame it games, right? So you want to give it a name. It's my Hashimoto's or my ED or whatever, right? So you name it. Then they have to get you to claim it. They have to say, hey, listen, and you're going to start calling it yours. Oh, and it's because of your genetics, or it runs in the family, because that starts to set you up that it's beyond your control. And we're just going to be the person that helps you manage it. So you name it, blame it, claim it. Well, you got to blame it on something. So what happens is people say, oh, well, it's in different realms. They'll say, well, it's genetics, and that's the reason why your cholesterol is elevated or whatever. In the holistic space or alternative or wellness kind of stuff, root cause people, I don't even like to use that term, quite honestly. They're going to say, well, it's because of leaky gut or adrenal fatigue. And they have all these monikers too, these stamps. And then they want to tame it. And they just so happen to have either pharmaceuticals and surgeries, two-trick pony, or over here, you have all the pills, potions, and powders, the gadgets, the gizmos. Well, the thing about that is people go, well, I hate big pharma. You know, well, one of the funny things that's totally fact checkable. I always tell people, don't believe me just because I'm enthusiastic and passionate about it. The vast majority of all the nutraceuticals, all the supplement companies are owned by the exact same pharma companies. Okay. Garden of Life is owned by Nestle. You know, just you could get all into it. So, and Pfizer owns a lot of them, like Emergency and things. So, and they're 10 to 20 times more annual revenue from the supplement industry than it is from pharmaceuticals. So they far surpass them by billions of dollars a year. So I find that kind of ironic that you got same kind of a model on either side, in that they like to call it something, blame it on something, and then sell you taming it in bottles. And here's where they're both falling short. They're not getting into the unique story of the individual, setting the person aside as a category of one, what makes them uniquely them, their environment, their mindset, their lifestyle, and their nutrition, all that data. In the medical traditional model, my colleagues, there's no time for that because a third party is paying for it. We call it in cases insurance, right? So your insurance pays for it. And so they only have limited time. So then they might suggest, oh, go see a dietitian or something like that. So that leaves your audience to the lone and dreary world of the noise and confusion of the info space. And so they go and they Google stuff, or they get something on flipping through TikTok, and oh, that sounds like me. I'll do that. And I go, that's kind of what the drug commercials say, like, ask your doctor if this is right for you. So it's all the same thing. It's very crossover. The models are the same. And so what I really want to encourage people to do, and the reason why I'm so grateful to come on the show and share with the audience is that I want to show you a standard. You know, there is a gospel or good news, if you will, to where you can find out data about yourself that is scientifically based, evidence-based. These are accepted biomarkers and values and some genetics, and then get that data, apply these things that you're wanting to explore, and then follow up and test and repeat and see how it's moving the markers, right? We just don't do everything all willy-nilly and stuff. And I know it's very easy to use certain terms out there, like we're going to get to the root cause, but what does that actually mean? They'll say, well, it's leaky gut. And I'm, well, there's no such thing as leaky gut. There's intestinal increased permeability, but there's no this, if you eat Doritos, the piece of the Dorito goes through the wall, goes into circulation, and causes all these problems. That doesn't happen in physics. It's just not there. But market's really good, right? Because then they're like, oh, well, then now you need these soil-based probiotics, or you need my nitric oxide supplement, or you need my, whatever it is, or my special remineralized coffee. That's really what you need, So there's a lot of that kind of stuff, going on out there. And I try to help show people that that's why they're not getting the results that they want to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think precision of language is something you're speaking to through one lens here. And it's such important to understand the meaning of terms, the definition of terms, what we say, the role that it plays in shaping our beliefs, our identity. I can tell out of the gate, we've been speaking here for about 20 minutes total. Just from your personality, you probably would be a comedy guy, somebody that likes to laugh and have fun. There's an old Chris Rock special where he's talking about the pharmaceutical industry and the way that they use these descriptions in their marketing, right? And it's like they will have a commercial that will literally have every possible diagnosis, to the point where like they'll say, do you go to bed at night and wake up in the morning? And it's like, and then the people watch is like, that's me. And it's like, I need that pill. It's so great to have you on here. And it really is. And, you know, obviously it's been done mainstream by these huge organizations for a very long time. And now those same principles of influence and persuasion are now being brought down into more this social space where, you know, there's no real barrier of entry. Anybody can turn on a camera and talk. And if they use big fancy words and they speak with authority and excitement, they can kind of present themselves as an authority figure. And I'm glad we're having this conversation and maybe bringing some of these things to light for people.
Oh, sorry, I was just riffing there. I was going to tell you. So yes, that's exactly right. I'm somewhat of a cut up. I'm known for my brand of being a contrarian, but I'm not like an intellectual Karen. Ultimately, I tell everybody, you, the patient, is the only one responsible for you, and demand a higher level of care from your caregivers, your physicians. And if they're not doing what you want them to do, you fire them and you move on. But along with that is we also have to take things a little bit more fun. And in life, matter of fact, there's a great book out there by Stuart Brown called Play, right? And it's how play shapes your brain, opens your imagination, and invigorates the soul. And so I really recommend that to everybody, because you get so locked in to your woes or how serious you have to be, or you can't have a cheat day or different things like that, or you take things too serious and you're inducing this health psychosis, if you will. And it just keeps repeating that pattern with seeing more of those, you know, that confirmation bias. You start seeing all the things in the media and posts, and you'll see yet another pill for an ill. And it just keeps working itself because you're taking that too seriously. So mindset is absolutely critical in everything, just as much as nutrition is.
Yeah, and I think what you're doing here is you're trying to empower individuals to take control of their health for the longevity of it, right? For the remainder of your life. You know, they're trying to offload the responsibility of really taking care of the most important thing, which is your mind, your body, your physical body, your heart, your soul, your spirit. It's like you try to unload that, like, and you're more worried about spreadsheets and data and what's the latest thing on Netflix and did my fantasy football team get managed here correctly, and just like, and then you're giving the responsibility of really the most important asset, which is you, to another person. It's like, no, you're saying learn these data, get the information in front of you, tweak it, become a lifetime student. You know, talked about bodybuilding here again. It's like I'm 20 plus years into training and I'm still trying to learn about my body, and I'm tweaking things every single year. The things that I'm doing now are way different than I was in my 20s, because I'm trying to improve and I want to be in this for the long game. And I think that's what you're trying to do here, is empower people to take ownership of their health for life.
And in order to do that, you have to have a skill set. You have to have strategies, not just tactics. You have to have something that's repeatable, quantifiable, qualifiable. And so that way you can have that. So that's my method, known as balanced protocol, gives them that framework to navigate it. Because a little background story. So I did my undergrad at Old Dominion University, Norfolk, Virginia. I was going to go fly jets for the Marine Corps. So I was an ROTC guy, but then I met this blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl from Virginia Beach, Virginia. And so I had to punt, and I walked away from a commission just before service selection. Next thing you know, I'm in the ODU field house, and I'm doing exercise physiology, sports med. I was a personal trainer for 10 years. So I grew up in that. I've moved many a plate for a client, and, you know, managed Bally's, you know, golds and all kinds of stuff. And the reason why I give that little background story is because I understand, particularly when it comes to, let me pander just a little bit here, to gentlemen. Well, most of my market is statistically, it's about 76 to 82% female. So men, we are very oriented on tell me what's wrong and what do we got to do to fix it. Okay. We don't really get into the feeling channel and stuff, which is why it sets us up for some BS. And then why we want that dopamine hit, or we'll turn to whiskey or videos on your computer, or, you know, different things. Some people, it's the gym, right? Some people it's cars, others it's video games. Because men were not really wired to seek help. We just want solutions, and then we try it because we don't want to get on all that the feeling space. And so we do want to have some type of guidance or framework or constraint that allows us to go from point A to point B with data. And this is where I really love working with gentlemen in that regard too, because now it cuts out the BS, and we can say, hey, listen, this is where you were, this is where you've implemented this type of periodization, and you're hitting your protein goals, and you're doing stuff, and you're doing your different training stuff for performance. But then you need to know where you started and where you are now. So then you could tweak improvements, look at, your gait and your motion and all kinds of stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm pandering a little bit, to that community, because I'm saying, listen, I understand where you come from, where you're at, how you think, because I'm famous for saying that my patients have been my greatest teachers. Technically, I've earned, 13 letters at the end of my name. I just drop those and I go doctor. So by training, I'm a doctor of naturopathy and a doctor of Oriental medicine, which is very unconventional, right? But at the end of the day, that's my field of integrative and functional medicine where it applies. And so when it comes down to it, that model allows us to look at systems and literally give tools and strategies for people to make those changes, but all data based. So now we're not doing it on woo woo or subjective stuff or a sales pitch.
I love that. And I want to zero in on one of the things you said right out of the gate there was, in order to become a student of this or, optimize it for the long haul, there's a skill set required. I think most things in life, if you're going to succeed in them, based upon two core things. Belief first, belief that I can do it, right? And then the skill set follows the belief. So, if people believe in themselves that they can overcome these illnesses, live an optimized life, live, well into their 80s, 90s, 100s, and continue to perform at a high level. If they start there with the belief, what's the number one primary skill set? Because that was the word that you used that really jumped out to me, that a man out there is going to need to acquire to really take ownership of his health.
That's a great question. What would be prime skill set? Because see, the skill set is a lot of stuff. It's like, well, what weight do you need? Do we really need a hack squat and a Smith machine? So we got all these different skill sets.
Well, what did you mean then when you said skill set? Because it was the word that you used that really jumped out to me. So
I was thinking the best one, or what was the biggest one they needed. So there's a variety of skill sets. I think they're all important. If I'm going to be a little clever at risk of sounding gimmicky, okay, it reminds me of what my dad taught me a long time ago. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. So the skill set would be to be open to stepping out of a possible ride that you're on in the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you know enough to be dangerous and you're doing some things, but it is a skill to learn. It's just like if you're coaching somebody as a ball coach, a business coach, or whatever, you come in, you're saying, well, hey, listen, I already know what I'm doing. I got the company to this place, we're already making millions of dollars. And you're like, well, hold on a second. Do you want to 10X or do you want to do this? You can't know it all. So if I would go, I'd say a skill set to open your mind, to have some additional data and support to now say, hey, everything got you to where you're at now, but now to go in the next place, you need to have this open-minded way of looking at things. I believe that's a skill set.
It's a way of thinking. It's dropping of pride, removal of ego. You mentioned being a man of faith. I think sometimes people's pride and ego gets in the way. You said way back at the beginning, right? They're going to try to label us, name it, claim it. It's like that then gives us this identity. Working the addiction space, I speak a lot about the word addict, how it kind of keeps people paralyzed and stuck, and maybe not chained to the thing that they were struggling with, but now they're chained to this belief system, this identity of an addict. You often talk a lot about mindset environment shapes our biology. And I think this, skill set that you just spoke to there kind of is weaved into that discussion point. Can you expand upon what you meant there when you say how our mindset environment play a role in shaping our biology? Because I think that's a little bit woo-woo for some people.
And it can be. Well, let's go to my mom's story. So I grew up in a single wide trailer, in Robinson County, North Carolina. Okay. My mom was a lifelong alcoholic and 2-pack-a-day smoker. So she was working on 2 addictions. Right. She divorced my dad when I was 5. I got 2 brothers, and a sister that lived with me. So there's 4 kids. And the thing is one of the things is I'll never forget when my mom went and got her white chip. Okay. Little old place on the side of I-95. across from the hotel she used to manage, this little Ramada Inn, and it was right there across from there in Lumberton, North Carolina. And, you know, she never turned back, never fell off the wagon. It was amazing. 2 years later, she gave up cigarettes. Now, one of the great things that she did on that is she loved that 12-step system. There's different approaches. Some people have different philosophies about overcoming addiction that way. But no matter what, my mom would always say that she's in recovery. And I always took issue with that. She goes, no, I am alcoholic. Because I said, Mom, why is it that now you've been going up there? I've seen you get blue chips, metal chips. And this is like 25 years later, you're going back there. We're making a pilgrimage back and, going there. And you're still saying, hi, my name is Mary and and I'm going, hold on a second. If you keep saying that, you do it. And she goes, well, you're always in recovery. You're always like, I said, well, I take issue with that. You can call yourself whatever you want, Mom. I love you to death, but I'm so proud of you for overcoming all that stuff. You need to release that, because every time you utter something or say something, it continues to put it back in your physiology. There's another great book out there by my colleague, Bruce Lipton, called The Biology of Belief. Literally, it is a scientific explanation of what the mindset does down to the cellular level on your membranes and how they communicate. All we are is one great receivership. It's what happens when we pray, when we meditate, when we hug, when we do sounds, right? This is oftentimes I think when we have something tasty, we go, why is that? If we're thinking, we go, right? And that's why we close a prayer with an amen, let it be so. And so there's all these things literally take our mind and our body's physiology and brings it together. So your mind has a lot to do with everything. And some people say, yeah, that is a little woo-woo. I call it fruity biscuits, right? You get a little sort of fruity biscuits on me, Anthony, what's going on there? And I'm going, well, hold on a second. In every scientific study, we account for this, and it's called placebo and nocebo. So if every study, bona fide randomized controlled trial, placebo controlled, we have to embrace the power and equity of what happens with what our brain is thinking about any specific thing that we're doing. You have to believe in it. Otherwise, you're going to cause it to fail. So that's how I speak to that. I think it's a kind of a roundabout story. Is if you're really looking to be empowered and have a superhuman life, you have to be super. We call it power posturing. If you want to feel a certain way, if I want to feel successful, I'm going to put up the victory. I'm going to go, yeah. I'm going to walk around this office in here going, yes, yes. And that physiology, we know what happens. So your environment and your lifestyle and your mindset all come together in these actions, words, and deeds that you do that set your physiology up with a greater propensity to heal. You have full control over it. You just got to learn the strategies to do it. And if you need a little help, you got guys like you and me that help direct your path.
Amen to that. I'm not sure if you're a Jordan Peterson guy at all. His book, 12 Rules for Life, been very...
I like the book. Him, not so much.
Okay.
And only because can I answer that? Let's be candid here, this is real stuff, right? Because I think where I take issue with him is I love that stuff. Because listen, we all have disagreements. I'm imperfect by any means. But the thing is when he starts getting into my realm of wellness and carnivore and just eating that, and then I'm going, and then his daughter and so forth, and then I see the mental struggle and anguish still in his countenance despite that. That's what I meant by that. But as far as his brilliance and stuff, yes, I love that part about him.
Well, the 12 rules, I believe it's the first rule in the book, 12 Rules for Life, stand tall with your shoulders back. And he references, I believe, studies done on lobsters and something that's ingrained in them, that when they are like in the bottom of the sea, it's like they will stand up shoulders back, and it releases these neurochemicals in the brain. So this stuff is like deeply rooted in biology of all species walking the planet. I was just referencing there from that kind of power.
And we have that in humans too, by the way. There's great TED Talks on it. So, yep, I love that completely.
Tony Robbins has spoken about that, time and time again for the last 40 years. Motion creates emotion. So we touched on, mindset here. You have your 4 factors of kind of the balance protocol. I'd love to maybe unpack the other 3 here, maybe starting with environment, or following mindset, not getting into environment. What role and what are some of the things that people need to be paying attention to with their environments that are going to shape their health and just their overall physiology?
Well, if I can use a prop here, because I actually, worked with patients, all over the world. So I have this little Post-it note, which I've divided into four equal things, and I've got my mechanical pencil. So I stick it there in the center, which is you. And most of the time, because my method is called balanced protocol. So this is where the little fun dog and pony show has to come in, because we got to be a little fun. So the thing is, oftentimes people think balance, they think left and right, like a seesaw. Well, technically, you've got multi areas that bring you to a place of balance, right? So when it comes to each one of these, so environment, lifestyle, mindset, and nutrition, the four factors of balance protocol, all of them are equal co-branches of government. Okay, so you got all four. So when I talk about environment, I'm talking about the air you breathe, right? The water you drink, the light you're exposed to, the sound, frequency, and vibrations, electromagnetic fields. All that's in play. Now, you don't have to be perfect, but they are all of energy. Okay. So we talk about the breath of life, and breathing is critical. You can't not breathe. So the quality of what's going in your nose and your mouth every single day should be qualified, quantified, measured, and monitored. So I teach people how to clean up their air and do things like that, and optimize that space. And then of course you've got water and what you consume. Everything in the body is an aqueous environment. There's no pure water in the body, but you better supply a pure supply, because things are taking out the waste. And then we have light, circadian rhythm, and connecting in nature, and grounding, and sunrises and sunsets, and then the light bulbs you use. And of course, red light's going crazy out there. I've done photobiomodulation for 25 years. Then we're talking about EMFs. Everybody's out there talking about, and I'll try to not show the name because I don't want to get them up too much. But then some of that noise and confusion out there is people selling little stickers like this to stick on your phone that block EMF and stuff. This is a total scam. This doesn't block any EMF. What blocks EMF is the power button, right? Putting that phone down and turning it off, and go laugh and pray and make love and have a good time in life, right? So your environment is all of that, and it seems overwhelming, but imagine if you had a framework and a navigational strategy that helps you implement those things line upon line, precept upon precept, just like learning the gospel, right? One thing at a time, and then you make those improvements. So that when I say environment, that's what I'm referring to, like literally your localized environment that you're creating. All those things have contribution and consequence to what things that you're experiencing, all the way down to the cellular level, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen this. I think a problem a lot here today is there are all of these tiny little hacks, and once again, it's an overconsumption of media. People spend 8 hours a day scrolling TikTok, and they're looking for this quick fix. And it's like, it's that old saying, it's like they're stepping over dollar bills to pick up pennies. Though they're looking for the little thing to put on the back of their phone, and they're forgetting about like why we were put here: connection, relationships, movement, enjoyment, intimacy, all these things. So I think that brings us into maybe the lifestyle stuff, right? Movement, sleep, stress. Speak a little bit to the importance of balance. Once again, leaning into your word, like the balance of life, and what are some of the key levers that people can maybe kind of look at pulling and manipulating when it comes to optimizing the balance of their lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great thing in lifestyle, because one of my philanthropies I do pro bono work for military special forces, U.S. SOCOM operators and stuff like that. There's a few of those famous stories
Did you
out
ever come
there.
down to McDill
Oh yeah.
in Tampa? Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I've been in the bunker. Matter of fact, I can, I'll tell you a real quick story about that. It's a perfect example. One of my patients, his name was Mike Day. He was a Navy SEAL. He was over and deployed. He got shot 27 times, blew up by a grenade, came to, smoked all the fools. But then, McDill and SOCOM Care Coalition said, hey, listen, I hear that there's this doctor, because I grew up around Fort Bragg. And they're like, hey, listen, let's, send Mike to him. Mike absolutely hated my guts. His wife loved me to death, but he didn't like, because he was very skeptical. Like, what is this guy? Come on, man. He's going to talk to me about nutrition and whatever. And, but anyways, the point of that is we changed his life, and he came around. It's in a fantastic book out there called Perfectly Wounded. And so, and I'm in there. So, and he tells how he hated me at first. So that's a good book. So I use that as a compare and contrast, because Mike's lifestyle sucks. Okay. And and that was preventing him from healing. And he didn't like the fact. I was like, listen, man, you got to get rid of that skull bandit out of your stuff. You got to put down the marijuana. You got to do these kind of things. Not that those are in themselves bad, because we use nicotine to heal. There's all kinds of stuff. But the point is like, I said, man, here's the thing. One thing I love about you, SF guys, because when you're dealing with the dev group community, man, they have their, it's a whole another, I can't even use the words. Okay, so my thing is that there's a lifestyle there, and you have some people out there, well, you got to get up at 4:30 in the morning and you got to do something that sucks, and if you and they believe in that. Okay, so they're snapping into a Slim Jim, eating beef jerkies, pounding Red Bull and whatever, because I'm bulletproof. There's some that are like that. Others, like my good friend, another Navy SEAL, Kirk Parsley. He's fantastic. He doesn't subscribe to any of that stuff at all, and we work on cases together, which is pretty awesome. But we have to get them into a new lifestyle, a routine, actually getting them to stay in bed and sleep. Like, hold on. I'm like, hold on a second. Well, I only needs 5 to 6 hours. Dude, you're not deployed anymore. Okay. You need to heal and recover your body. You need 8. It's a magic number. It's the symbol for infinity. Yes, you could go 7, you can go 9, but there's something magical about 8. I could just tell them. So we got to get them doing that routines. And then, oh my gosh, getting them to talk about self-care, you know what I mean? Or skincare or hygiene or cleaning up their environment or different things. And, we're fellow animal lovers. And, Mike had his Belgian Malinois and stuff. I'm like, dude, listen, I know whatever, but they lick their behinds. We can't keep putting the microbes. How many stool samples do I have to do with you to fix your thing? So it's funny because in the reality is your lifestyle has to do with your a certain another skill set to learn to implement going to sleep at a regular time, feeding the body at a regular interval, making sure you move, you stretch, you pray, you meditate, you journal, and all those kind of things. So that lifestyle of exercise, but not extra training too hard because you're putting demand. I see that's a big problem out there all the time, that people are overtraining, right? I want to be more vascular, so I'm going to start doing my peptides, and I want to do this, and I'm a carnivore, I'm a keto. That's all subterfuge. It's all very surfacey stuff. And that's not lifestyle. That is another form of addiction that you're not admitting to, because it gets them high. And then when I show them their biomarkers of epi, dopamine, and serotonin, I test it in every one of my patients. It's part of my panel. I show them the impacts of that, either when they're on high or it's all depleted after time and the body starts crashing out. We can quantify that. So when we are implementing things, whether it be in the environment or here the lifestyle, you can quantify it down to markers that your body actually ejects through your blood, your urine, saliva, etc., and know what it's actually doing physiologically and manifesting in your system's biology. So that's really what it boils down to. I mean, I got mad skin in the game working with guys they're the reason why they're still sick and not healing, because you want to medicate with things.
What do you say, Dr. Beck, to the person that pushes back with some of these things, right? It's like, come on, and live a little bit, right? We only get one life. I can't enjoy a little bit of tobacco, or what about alcohol, right? Like, is there in this balanced protocol where people can still enjoy some of the pleasures of living in 2025, or is it pure structured and we got to follow all these principles, or how do we kind of navigate, I guess, the balance of that into our lifestyle?
Wow, that's a fantastic one. You're absolutely correct. I align with that. I call it living life in balance. Okay. But here's what I do. If a person presents and they have a case and they've got these lists, okay, fatigue, low libido, insomnia, muscle pains, gastrointestinal stuff, all the famous things, psoriasis, allergies, migraines, headaches, ringing in the ears, blah, 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 blah. And they've done all this stuff. And they go, well, I've tried all these things. I've tried everything. And I go, okay, how's it working for you? So if remember what I told you, the first thing, what you learn after you know it all that counts, you have to open your mind to that, even though you've tried all these things, right? And then what they end up doing is, and they're like, well, I've done all this stuff. And I said, man, you're like that guy who prays and says, Jesus, take the wheel, but you keep your hands on it. Okay. That's not how that works. Okay. And I'm not Jesus by any means, let me be perfectly clear. Okay. But many people before you have taught me how to deal with that kind of a thing. And I don't want you to think that you have to be this perfect entity, but there are certain non-starters that you can't, that are no brainers. If you have this autonomic nervous system overtone, this fight or flight, or this angst, or whatever, insomnia and things like that, you can't do a little bit of tobacco. You just can't. But what about, and there's this fraud out there now who's all talking, getting everybody on nicotine, and it's sending me a lot of business because I'm having to fix some stuff. But Nicotine is a therapeutic molecule dosed in the right context for the right person and in broad consideration of other systems that we're monitoring with biomarkers. Then we can implement it. Okay. Then there's other people say, well, there's no safe amount of alcohol whatsoever. And I go, well, tell that to everybody who tells you to drink fermented foods like kombucha. Kombucha has a little bit of alcohol in it. Our body naturally makes alcohol. They don't know these things. So you can't have that dogmatic, obtuse thinking, because what you'll end up doing is the person will just pull the effort lever. Okay. And Mike's story is a great story about that until we had him, whatever. Now, unfortunately, Mike decided to, take his life, a year or so ago. And so it broke my heart. Right. But what led up to that, contributing to, and I can share this because the family is, still, under my care and stuff. And I love them to death. So I can talk about stuff and not, violate patient things. But it's because he's got back to those old patterns again. He stepped out of, that lifestyle and that environment and mindset and was around, ladies that weren't conducive to that. I mean, if we're going to have true talk about resolving things, we have to have candid stuff. I don't think we have any kids watching your podcast. But so what you have to realize is that you don't have to be perfect. You can have those things. And I don't like the term moderation, because if you do a bunch of things in moderation, you're now not in moderation. Remember that little thing I was showing you? And at the end of the day, people will justify things. Well, it's just a little bit of video watching while I do this. It was just a little drink on the weekends, and it turns into this. And it kind of goes back to my mom. She goes, well, I have 4 kids, and statistically, to an alcoholic, 1 out of 4 kids is an alcoholic. And then my brother David would raise his hand and say, I volunteer. And he used to get my mom so mad.
Okay.
Anyways, it was so funny. But the thing about it is I can't drink alcohol very much. I like a nice cocktail, a crafted one. I have a very nice bar. I have the whole setup and things like that. But physiology, I can't. Now, my genes and stuff help me understand why. And I look at those for patients too. So for me, I can. But my mom would say, hey, well, first you take a drink, then the drink takes a drink, then the drink takes the man. Okay. And you can apply that in all kinds of addictive substances. So the thing is we want to balance something that has a potential for addiction versus the context of how it's consumed or applied, right? So like nicotine is not addictive by default. This is why some people say, well, there's nicotine in eggplant. Yes, but it's so ridiculously minute in all nightshades, even tomatoes. We can mass spec and go, oh, there's the nicotine spike. That doesn't mean it has nicotine effect. Okay. And then if you're popping a pouch, I don't even want to give the brand name, a 15 milligrammer, okay, and you're doing that every day or nonstop, that's entirely different than if we took a milligram or 2 with other nutrients to go along with it, right? So there is a balance. You can have these things that have these different, views to them and leverage them clinically if you have data to steer. That's how you determine if it's balance or moderation for you specifically.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's the context of how you're using the thing, right? Are you drinking every night after work because work is so overwhelming and stressful that you can't even get yourself to sleep and you don't know how to process and regulate those emotions? Or are you having 2 drinks on a weekend to create a little bit more of a social environment that you're enjoying with your friends? So there's this contextual component to how we utilize some of these things. Are you using the caffeine every morning because you can't wake up, or does it become a performance enhancer when you're trying to lock in and focus on something? So contextual.
Caffeine, any of these molecules that do things, they have places. Okay. Psychedelics, ibogaine, psilocybin, they all have a clinical merit. Okay. They have these things. But again, this is what I'm working with in that community now, particularly, in the special forces stuff, is that these guys are turning to those and ketamine and different things of that nature, but no one's taking care of their physiology, assessing it beforehand, applying those, and then after, and guess what? Correcting their environment and their lifestyle too. They're just doing the molecule and, tolling its graces. So that's where I'm bringing that balance in. That's actually where I'm really trying to make that shift in the world and community in that, so we can leverage therapeutic molecules without disgrace or icky or, oh, it's just drugs and you want to be high, and you're just experience shopping and you want to come out and say this story. I'm going, well, there is some of that with everything, but imagine though, if we did apply these other things that just absolutely are established in science and logically, make sense.
Yeah. So we touched on 3 of the 4 factors here. Let's wrap it up with the 4 factors of the balance protocol with nutrition, and maybe speaking to this myth that there's one perfect diet, or even this dogmatic world in the nutrition space where it's like you gotta be this one particular way, because that once again is identity focused, dogmatic, limit to thinking, one box everything. You believe very similar to me that all these things can be a tool in a much broader approach. But speak to the nutrition part as we wrap up these 4 factors of the balance protocol.
So, I mean, what is nutrition, right? So, in other words, the body needs to be replenished and replaced just based in its physiology. So, we need to take things that which are not self, consume them and turn them into self. Okay. So that's, back to my parents. I've talked about them a lot today. It's pretty wild. Mom, love you to death. Both of them are passed away. But the thing about it is my mom would always say, well, son, just know this, never talk religion in politics, in crowds or companies or events. And so then now I've had to add a third dogma. So you got religion, politics, and nutrition. Because man, if you want to spark start talking about vegan versus carnivore versus Mediterranean diet versus keto versus ancestral, all these monikers. I've leveraged all of them for 30 years on countless tens of thousands of patients. Okay. They are tools, but you have to qualify for them. Back to North Carolina, we grew up, we love NASCAR. Okay. You can't put me in a NASCAR and just tell me push the pedal and just make one great big old, left hand turn. It's not that simple. There's context to it, right? What speedway you're on, what fuel you're running, what's the temperature. There's all kinds of things. So again, same thing in business, same thing in relationships, families, the gym, performance. Training in Colorado is not the same thing as training in Hawaii. It's not. Okay. So why would diet or nutrition be anything different? We need to quantify, qualify, measure, and monitor the patient and what they need and justify it by objective data points. So yes, some patients we do carnivore, some patients we do vegan, some patients we do put into ketosis, but there's markers that I use to make that determination. I help people determine what their macros are, how much protein, fats, and carbs you should combine by actually looking at your mitochondria, your carbohydrate metabolism, how much lactate and pyruvate that you're putting out in your urine specifically. And then we know those are all nutrient dependent, B1, B2, B3, right? Glutathione's in there, iron's in there. You got your methylation that works with it. How about assess all of those to determine what and how you should be eating? Now we're in true precision, not just what your genes say, because you don't know if that gene is an expression or not. So nutrient needs to be based upon the patient's unique story, okay, their biochemical individuality, translated through their lifestyle and their environment. See how it all comes back around? And listen, I eat everything. From the hooter to the tutor, every nut, seed, grain, twig, creation, from Almighty. It's all wonderful unless it makes you throw up, poop your pants, intoxicates you, or give you an adverse reaction. You can consume it. But here's what we can't do. We can't say, okay, well, let's go ahead and do the lion diet, and we're going to give you this high protein, grass-fed bison, and then we're going to do a core biopsy of your vastus lateralis, and we're going to look at your muscle, and they're going to go, oh, that came from grass-fed bison. You have no idea if it was venison, sausage, or mackerel. All the protein. We have no idea. Why do I make that example? Because what you eat has to be turned into you, and it's all available. But people like to say, well, plant proteins are incomplete proteins. That's correct. Just like a man and a woman are incomplete, particularly in the eyes and designs of God, but you get them together, and then now you make a family and you bless the world. Right? So guess what? You can get a variety of proteins together and bless your physiology. Can I get an amen? You see what I'm saying? So this is what's fun for me is to awaken people's faculties that everybody out there has this way of telling you what to do, and they don't know a thing about you. They haven't asked you a question of those 4 factors. They don't know your biomarkers. Yes, you can hear all these great stories like, oh my gosh, I went carnivore and it changed life and cleared my psoriasis. Well, guess what? I'll have another person who was wrecked by carnivore, and another person say, I went vegan and oh my God, it cured my psoriasis. There you go. Biochemical individuality. Your uniqueness needs to be quantified. So nutrition is that third dogma Okay. And everybody's got a thing. And you'll always notice a litmus is that if they're demonizing you about it, like, oh, you're eating animals, you're somehow inferior. And I can't believe that you are taking that milk from that cow and not giving it to, I mean, there's all these things. And then in the carnivore, they're like, oh, there's anti-nutrients and the plants are trying to kill. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. And if you want to be free from all of that, I can help you decipher it for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's that fear mongering. Once again, it's, it's that old play of human nature and understanding psychology and influence, tactics from mainstream media from, decades ago or now being brought into what people believe is just real world social media, when in reality, it's a lot of it is agenda driven. People have things on the back end that are trying to market, and they are just speaking to the pain points. You speak to enough pain points for a certain individual, you're going to get the buy-in and belief. And, I've used these things in the past in marketing.
I mean, because that's what I'm doing here. I mean, I'm not exempt from that. So how do you know the difference? There's all kinds of religions out there, and all of them have a thing. There's some common threads, but what differentiates, right?
But at the same time, we've said it here today. At least in this discussion, what I'm hearing is you're coming here with specific things. Obviously, we're going to get into your at-home test, what we talked about here before. I want to drive people, if they're interested in learning more and getting connected with you where they can. So yeah, you're coming in, you're running a business, and just like we are here as well. At the same time, you're saying, I can help empower you. Like it still is putting everything back into the hands of the individual to become the educated one, to become empowered in managing their health. So let's kind of take this last pivot here. And you told me before we hit record about this new launch, this new at-home testing that you guys have. Tell us a little bit about kind of genesis of that, and what people can expect if they get involved in these at-home testing, and maybe where they can learn more about you and the balance protocol and everything else that you have out there.
Okay, perfect. So here's the thing. Just like with anything else, because I'm not exempt, okay, and I'm not going to be held as duplicitous. I want to help people, like I talk about, with a strategy. I want to guide them to make some decisions, and at the end of the day, data can do that. I know there's this adage out there: test, don't guess. Right? People track your testosterone, your growth hormone, and all that kind of fun stuff, which I agree with. But people need a starting point. Okay. You need a bearing, a reference. Okay. Where am I going? You need to at least, if you're lost in the wilderness, you need to at least know, are you northeast, west, or south? If you know how to do the sticks in the shadow, but what if it's nighttime, or boom, what if there's the clouds? So there's always these if then go tos, right? So, but I want to tell people there's a starting point. And it's not something as simple. Okay, well, in medicine, we typically will do, a Chem 14, a CBC differential, and we'll do a liver panel, and we do that type of workup. Okay, that's for that model. Okay, which all those values are fantastic. We do it later. But the vast majority of people, what they need to know is their nutritional status. What is their metabolism doing? They need to evaluate minerals, vitamins, amino acids, fatty acids, all 4 of them. Okay. So if you're trying to go take this product, these, perfect aminos or all that BS, or even creatine or different things, they're all therapeutic molecules in the context of an individual, very useful, but you don't know what you're doing with them. Okay. They're not all benign. I'm going to start taking some NAD. Okay. Or I'm going to start taking this for longevity. Or I saw this guy was wanting to live forever and his skin looked like wrapped plastic. And I want to do what he does. I want to be like Mike. Okay. So what ends up happening is people are all over the place. So I went with a lab who I've worked with for 30 years, and they actually came to me and said, "Hey, listen, we recognize what you've been saying out there in marketing and stages and educational stuff like that. How do we fix it?" And I said, "Well, I need this test, and I need to remove the barriers to entry for people. It needs to be, number one, clinically substantiated, right? Evidence-based. It needs to be priced correctly. It has to be not cost prohibitive. Number 3, it has to be convenient for people to do it. So they're not having to go and arrange phlebotomy or go to a draw or something like that." And we got together and I built it. And they gave me exactly what I wanted. So we combined functional real-time biomarkers across all of systems biology and a curated amount of gene single nucleotide polymorphisms, twice as much than is in the popular one that was played out there for everybody. And everybody was being told, once you know your genes, then you know how to supplement for deficiency for the rest of your life. Well, that was a grift to get them to buy their private label supplements into perpetuity based upon the genes. With, like, for instance, hey, this is your MTHFR gene, right? And the narrative is that if you have, claim it. If you have this MTHFR gene, you can't convert folic acid. So we demonize folic acid and all the foods that have in it. Well, that's being said by a person and people who don't know that the MTHFR gene does not convert folic acid in the first place. It's an entirely different gene called DHFR. And there's 3 to 4 other steps before it's even handed off. It's already 5-10 methylene before it goes to this gene. Anyway, I don't want to get too creepy. But my point, too techie. So creepy would go there too. My thing is I get excited about it because I know what's in the market. So we created a program around a market, not a market around a program. We didn't come up with a marketing shtick. We're like, this is what people want to know. What is my status of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and fatty acids? That's where they all boil down to what they're selling them anyways. So I go, we can look at all of those. And then we have the genes that manipulate and control and influence them. How about we put those in too? So that's what I created. And we're in the midst of launching it. It's called Balance Protocol GPS.com. So Balance Protocol GPS, which stands for Get Protocol Started. But of course, it's a little double entendre, right? I mean, I spent some time down there benning with, with the Rangers and stuff like that, and, counting with our little beads and stuff, right? So you have to navigate. Navigation is one of the first things they teach, right? So the thing is we want to give people a navigational bearing to find out where you are now, determine where you want to go, and then some benchmarks, hallmarks, and directional beacons to guide you there. Now, it doesn't tell us, we're not testing hormones. Okay, I'm not measuring your testosterone yet. Why? Because testosterone is governed by what? Minerals, vitamins, amino acids, fatty acids. So lean on those first. So this is a starting point. Everything else comes after that, right? There's a book and it's called the Bible. Boom, read it. Which chapter? I don't know. Oh, open it up. Okay, how do I pray? So we have these basic little things that we have to start with and then go from there and then grow within it. Same thing in a marriage, right? It's cumbersome at first, it's the honeymoon, but then the finances and logistics kick in, and business. And how do I navigate that, right? And then we run into some snafus. We have some problems, stuck with things. Well, then we'll come to a coach and say, hey, help me through this. Can you help me navigate this? I don't know. I need to learn it. So that's what I do. It's an information-based thing, not just saying, hey, here's what your thing is. It's a full educational, what it means, and wait for it, what to do about it specifically for you. It's completely self-navigable. You don't even have to go to doctors or practitioners or anything, any of it. It's all built into the program to where you can say, okay, my 4-aminoglutamic acid is elevated. I truly do have a folate deficiency. I need to increase dietary folate. Well, from what? Well, here's my amino acids. I probably should do a little bit more legumes. That's what it is. Balance Protocol GPS. It's absolutely the culmination of my 3 decades in doing what I'm doing, and I can't be more excited about it.
Yeah. And where can the guys learn more, order, get plugged in?
Yeah, well, if they want to learn more about my method, you can go to balanceprotocol.com. I have an entire community of people of like-minded, not an echo chamber. So we own our own server, our own platform, our own software. It's every bit of what something like a Facebook would be on the back end. We have a lot of people. I do live calls and things like that. So balanceprotocol.com, that's there, and it's free to join. Of course, there's some premium levels if you want more access to information and stuff. But then for the testing program, it's balanceprotocolgps.com, just like it sounds. Real simple and easy. Two great places to start. And above all else, Me and I have a whole team of clinicians, right? MDs, DOs, PhDs, chiros, the whole nine yards. And we truly are here to give back and serve the community. And we're not selling a bunch of pills, potions, and powders. Yes, we can recommend certain ones and things like that. But I really want people to know that's where it differentiates, because in this world of AI, people are doing things like, well, I don't need doctors anymore, so I'm gonna start uploading my labs to Chat GPT, and it's a better patient experience. I get it, but I've done that too, and it is wrong. They're so off. Now there are medical, AIs that are out there, but they don't have access. They're not out there. And they're training them pretty phenomenally. So I will say that's coming. But on the layperson thing, doing it on your own is wrought with troubles. So just be careful. I'm not telling you not to do it. You always have the right to do what you want to do. But if you're looking for a place that's not biased and it recognizes you as a category of one, embraces the unique context of you, looks at various factors in your life, and then gives you a strategy through a framework, not just, here, you need a detox. It's mold, it's candida, it's heavy metals, and they just start trying stuff willy-nilly. We put all that on quiet mode, and we say, hey, listen, let's gather some data and give you some correctional navigation now, and we'll start there. Don't worry about the rest. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah, too many people are relying on AI and ChatGPT in particular. It's literally asterisk right at the bottom of their page. It will make mistakes. Check the important info. But if you don't know that information because you're not the expert, that's why people need individuals like Dr. Beck and get plugged into the community. So guys, we'll have balanceprotocol.com and balanceprotocolgps.com plugged down there in the show notes. Very simple to type into your URL. Last couple questions here as we kind of drive this conversation home. Dr. Beck, it's been an absolute honor. Really enjoyed this. I think we've hopefully given the listener some value here. I think we just scratched the surface on your level of expertise. So guys, make sure to follow Dr. Beck. We'll have all of his websites and socials plugged down there. I open it up with maybe the lie around the medical field currently. As we drive the conversation home, last few questions here. What is perhaps maybe one truth that you want the listeners out there to believe about this health journey that they're on?
Yeah. That you can completely and utterly recover from all of your health woes. It's all reversible. You can. There's no question, right? And I'm not saying it's an easy journey, but it is a journey. And I love you, Mom. Okay. But by the time you passed away, you were no longer an alcoholic. Okay. You proved it with 32 years of sobriety. So you can recover and you can get better, and your bodies will do it. I'm here to help you do it.
Yeah. It starts with that belief that a lot of people needed to hear that. So final question here, Dr. Beck. We're recording episode 299. It's been 6 years of the Superhuman Life. Just a couple weeks ago, we celebrated our anniversary. So I've ended every episode with the same and final question. And, the Superhuman Life has been a journey for me of growth and discovery and defining it in my own life and trying to live it out from a place of leadership and integrity. But I love to always get the guest takes. So with your unique experience and perspective and expertise in the world, Dr. Beck, as we drive this conversation home, how would you define living a superhuman life?
Man, that's a good one. Those are those big questions. Man, that's a good one. See, I talk a lot, but man, when you get me on one, I got to contemplate. I got to, I think I'm just going to go on what comes to me, best, and that is to find a way that doesn't glorify you, but one that makes you the center, and the importance of how important it is to take care of yourself, to put on the air to yourself first, so that you can be in the service of others and your maker. That's where I get my joy from. If I have to really think about it, I got 3 princesses, man. I'm in the daddy business. It's the best. I'm remarried. I had a second chance, 13 years now after a 16-year run. She's 17 years younger than me. I'm going to live forever because of these people. Right. But where my joy comes from is empowering and serving other people. So I make sure I do take care of me first and foremost. But that's how I would live a superhuman life, man, is I would say, invest in yourself, get yourself there and some help, and then now really see what you can do to be in the service of other people.
I love that. And I think it's fully aligned with what I've tried to do here. And I can see the joy and passion and excitement and the things that you get to talk about and share. And hopefully I've done a great job in bringing some of that stuff out here today. So I've really
Oh yeah, man. I'm flattered. This is way better than I would have thought. I mean, I've been on a lot of podcasts, and I'm kind of a cut up, but this one has particularly been a fun experience and a ride for me. And I thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk to your listeners.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Dr. Beck. Guys, balanceprotocol.com, balanceprotocolgps.com. But as we shared here, you guys, whatever you're struggling, whether it's a mindset, belief system, illness, chronic disease, it's all manageable. I don't even know if curable would be the right word to use here, but you can overcome any of this if you follow the steps that we laid out here and go a little bit deeper and become your own student and your own teacher in this game and journey of life. So Dr. Beck, has been an honor. Guys, as always, if you're getting value out of these conversations, you want to continue to support so I can continue to attract incredible guests and experts like Dr. Beck here. You can support the show in these two ways. Ratings and reviews. I know I ask you guys every single week. You don't truly understand the importance of what that can do to drive the engagement and get this podcast and conversations out in front of more people. So if you haven't, but you are enjoying these conversations, leave that rating and review. And most importantly, if you have somebody in your life that needs to hear this, whether it's the addiction stuff that we just touched on, or some of the mindset or belief, or some of the balance protocol factors, do us a favor, but do that person the blessing by sharing this conversation with them. But for Dr. Anthony Beck, your host, Coach Frank Rich here. We love you guys. We'll see you in the next one.